Hello, everybody. This is Ashley. I am back home, as you can tell. So, I've been home since like 2. I've been home since I think like 2:30 maybe. So, I just decided, okay, I'm home, not doing anything, so I might as well just go ahead and start reading the final last 2 chapters, and then tomorrow I am going to be reading Awakened Evil. So from August 1st to August 10th, I'll be reading chapters 1 through 10. So that's going to be very easy to read. And I will keep the times that I normally do a live stream. Like, I don't want to do it like 2 in the afternoon or 1. I want to just do my regular live reading. So I'm going to read the final 2 chapters, and there actually is a equal, I think. I don't know how do you say that word. I don't know, whatever that is called. But I'll definitely read that too. So, this is chapter 34. Okay. Batman. He missed me so much. Okay. Chapter 34. Maybe I should read the last paragraph from the last chapter so you all know what's going on. All the flying creatures grouped up together in one big cluster, then flew straight down and entered Gina's mouth. Her head jarred back as they crept down her throat. Gina doubled over as she held her stomach. She fell to her knees, then collapsed forward to the ground. Oh, chapter 34, sorry. Gina ran over and stopped. She wasn't moving or breathing. Is she dead? Or was her soul taken by the flying creatures? Gina? Olivia knelt down with both hands to her chest, then reached down and turned Gina over on her back. She moved her hair from her face. Gina's eyes opened. They were a solid ebony, just the way they looked when Inga had possessed her. Did Inga and the flying creatures have the same powers? Or did Inga make them just like her? Gina wrinkled her nose and hissed at Olivia. Olivia's stomach sank, and she fell backwards to the ground, then looked down and saw movement inside Gina's stomach. It had to be the flying creatures. It couldn't be Inga because she was dead. She was now dead. Olivia stared at Inga's dead body, then back at Gina. Batman, quit it. The pounding in her chest increased as her throat and mouth dried from rapid breaths she took. This woman wasn't the Gina she knew. Her sharp teeth could cut through flesh in a heartbeat. Her ripped clothes looked like she'd been left for dead. Her skin looked like a dried lake, and part of her skull was broken and caved in. Her hair was frizzed like she had been electrocuted. Parts of her skull had no hair. Gina was possessed by the flying creatures that had been released from Inga's mouth. Olivia had to try. She got up, ran back to the house, and closed the door behind her before Gina got a hold of her. She reached for the wooden handle and slid it in place, then backed away from the door just in case it flew open. Her hand shook uncontrollably and her lips trembled. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. A sick feeling settled in the pit of her stomach. Gina slammed up against the door and screamed demonically. At one point, she growled and snarled at the fact that she couldn't get the door open. Olivia ran into the potion room and looked for something to use against Gina, so she could release the flying creatures. Gina continued to slam up against the door. A book sat on a table next to the fireplace. Where did that come from? Why didn't I see it before? She ran over and opened it, then turned a few pages one after another, until she came to a spell called the Flying Creature Possession. She ripped it out and realized the noise had died down. It was silent. Her heart drummed in her ears. Olivia swallowed deeply and felt the beating rhythm in her chest. Thud, thud harder and faster. A creepy feeling slithered down her neck and arms. She pressed her lips together and slowly turned around. Olivia flinched. Before she took a step back, Gina darted across the room like she had some kind of supernatural power and stopped in front of her. She grabbed her by the throat, then lifted her up in the air. Olivia couldn't feel the ground beneath her. Gina squeezed her throat tighter. She tossed her across the room. Olivia's body flew over a table, then fell to the hardwood floor. She held her throat and gasped for air. Her sight blurred as tears burned her eyes. Gina took each step forward with purpose. Olivia coughed and got the air back into her lungs. She glanced over and saw the paper on the floor near a piece of broken wood. She got to her feet, grabbed the wood, and whacked Gina across the face. Gina collapsed to the floor. Oh no, I hope I didn't kill her. The piece of wood loosened from her hand. She rushed over to the paper on the floor and stuffed it in her back pocket. She saw a room to the right of her and ran to it. An old red curtain filled with cobwebs and spiders, hung in front of the doorway. She pulled the curtain back and took a step forward. A pentagram was in the middle of the room. What the? The floor was filled with dust and spider webs. A strong smell like rotten flesh lingered in the air like a fuel mixed of death. Olivia walked over to Gina and pulled her along the floor by the wrist. She entered the room, then laid her arms down by her sides. She pulled the paper out and saw a pentagram with a body lying in the middle of it, then peered over at Gina. She set the paper on the table and slid Gina's body into the middle of the pentagram, then scanned the paper. The first step was the candles. Black for negative energy, orange for strength, green for protection, blue for healing, and white for peace. Olivia ran into the potion room and searched through all the candles. She found the ones she needed and ran back to the room. She set each candle on the points of the star and lit them one by one with a wooden match. She finally knelt down by Gina's feet and stared at the prayer. Gina's head turned forcefully. Olivia gasped and raised a hand to her chest. Silence crowded the room. Each second seemed to creep by. Gina's head turned the other way again, then back and forth. Olivia's eyes widened. A sickness settled in the pit of her stomach. Gina's head turned right to left, then again and again, and then it stopped instantly. One by one, all the candles sparked. Olivia jumped back. Gina's head turned right to left, then again and again. Olivia stood and read, "Demon, no demon, have no negative energy. Have the strength and heal us with protection." A deep growl was heard somewhere in the room. It was so close to her. Olivia looked back at Gina. Her body tossed and turned, then stopped. Olivia didn't move or speak. Her whole body stiffened, and her fingers gripped the paper in her sweaty palms. A thick black liquid emerged out of Gina's mouth. A skinny arm with sharp nails crept out. Olivia whimpered, her lips trembled, and her eyes widened. She squeezed her eyes shut, then peeked again. She didn't have the ability to speak, but she needed to finish the prayer. She had to. She needed to. So she did. Olivia repeated herself 3 times. Demon, no demon. Have no negative energy. Have the strength and heal us with protection. She ran over to the table and grabbed the dagger, then turned around. She walked back over and bent down beside Gina's active body. She kept a gap between them. Olivia raised the dagger above her head. She gripped it. Tears poured down her cheeks. Soreness settled in her throat and lungs. Please forgive me, Lord. Two more arms came out of Gina's mouth. Black liquid poured from her. Ew, that's disgusting. Demon, no demon, have no negative energy, have the strength and heal us with protection. Olivia shoved the dagger deep into Gina's chest, then stabbed her 2 more times like the paper had said. No screaming was heard, no movement could be seen. Olivia let out a scream for what she'd done. She just killed her friend. For a moment she paused, then slowly reached for the dagger and pulled it out, then dropped it. She crawled back and stared at Gina's lifeless body. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry, she sobbed. She covered her face and cried. A low snarl echoed in her ear. She looked up and saw all the flying creatures dart out of Gina's mouth. They crashed into the wall and exploded into ashes. An unknown force pushed Olivia backwards across the room. She hit the wall as the breath got knocked out of her. Blackness surrounded her. Her hair dangled past her face. Her arms and legs were suspended out in front of her. For a split second, she saw her own body on the hardwood floor. My body. I can see my own body, laying there lifeless. From the corner of her vision, she saw Gina on her back in the middle of the pentagram. She still wasn't moving. A bright white light shone down past Olivia. Her body traveled through the gentle air. Inga's house became smaller and smaller as she floated further away. With the large landscape and trees, including the roads and cars down below, she saw her mom's house. Blackness engulfed her, and she was out again. Olivia awoke like she had been asleep for a lifetime. The ground beneath her felt different. It wasn't hard. It wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't scratchy or itchy. It was soft, like cotton. The colorful sky had a mixture of different colors. Tall mountains and colorful trees were everywhere. Hills overlapped each other. A loud roar rumbled through her body. She flinched and lifted her head. A large male lion had a golden mane and yellow eyes. He wore a collar around his neck with diamonds and crystals on it. It was the most beautiful lion she had ever seen. The lion took one look at her and then trotted off into the distance before he evaporated into thin air. Batman? A few deer and even a horse gazed in the grass, with their young close by their sides. Sorry, Batman was doing something. Whoa, where am I? It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Wait, I couldn't be on Earth, could I? The Earth wasn't this calm and peaceful. Where's Inga's house? She stood and looked around. Birds flew in the sky as she smiled. A figure walked through the pink mist towards her, and she realized who it was. She didn't have to study the person or guess to herself. It was Grandpa. He was young, perhaps in his 30s. Olivia knew it was him because she had seen pictures of him when he was in his 30s. A smile appeared across her face. She ran through the colorful grass and wrapped both arms around him. Grandpa, I missed you so much. I missed you too, he said with both arms around her, a hand on the back of her head. Grandpa, where am I? Heaven. He put an arm around her shoulder. Come on, I'll show you around." The both of them walked together through the soft grass. Olivia held her hand out and let the grass brush across her skin. It wasn't itchy, it was soft and smooth. They came to a hill and overlooked a beautiful land. A tear slid down her cheek and dropped from her eye. It landed in the river that had every flower and tree along the river bed. She placed a hand over her mouth and saw kids running around in a circle, wearing white clothes. Pets ran around and played with one another, and adults singing to Jesus. Wait a minute. Jesus? This can't be real. No way. Am I really in heaven? Who's the man in the chair? Grandpa looked back and smiled. Jesus. He was the one that came for me when I passed. He did? Yes. This is so amazing, she said. I'm in heaven, a place I've always wondered about and wanted to know what it was like. Did I die? No, you're having an NDE, he replied. A what? Near-death experience. I am? Yes, but you can't stay here. Tears filled her eyes. No, please, she wrapped both arms around him. I don't want to go back. I want to stay here with you. I miss you. Olivia, he placed both hands on her shoulders. You can't stay. It's not your time yet. You have to go back. Let me send you back. No, Grandpa, no. Olivia, look at me. She lifted her head, tears slid down her cheeks. Grandpa wiped her tears away and smiled back, then nodded. You have to go back. Olivia shook her head. No. She wrapped her arms back around him and held on, knowing that if she went back, she would never see Grandpa again. I don't want to. Olivia Bell. He lifted his hand as if to show her something. Look. Olivia looked at the direction where he pointed. She could see herself and Gina. Gina held Olivia's body in her arms. Olivia. She moved Olivia's bangs from her face. I'm here. Please wake up. Tears formed in Gina's eyes. You can't leave. The vision changed from Gina holding her, then to her parents. They sat there on the couch, praying. The vision changed again. It showed Loretta crying and Skeeter worried. Olivia placed a hand over her mouth and looked back at Grandpa. If you stay, you will be leaving them all behind. I'm never going to leave you. I'll see you again. Promise you'll come back and visit me? I promise. Olivia sobbed. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too. He kissed her on the head and hugged her one last time. She rested her head on his chest. A force jolted Olivia back. It felt so strong and powerful she couldn't control it. Grandpa stood there with a smile, reassuring her that everything would be okay. Olivia trusted that smile, a smile she had grown up with, a smile she had seen every day, a smile that warmed her heart. The more she was pulled away, the smaller he became. Her eyelids grew heavy, and everything around her darkened. Dun dun dun. Okay, so chapter 35, the last chapter. Is that Batman? Can you guys see Batman right there? Okay. Chapter 35. The final chapter. She was now back in her body. She gasped for air and sat up. Gina pulled her close in her arms. Olivia, I thought you died. My grandpa, he sent me back. Gina nodded, holding her close as if she was her child. I know he did. She moved Olivia's hair from her face. Olivia noticed the stab wound on Gina's chest was gone. The stab wound! Gina's brow creased. What are you talking about? It's gone. What's gone? You don't remember? No. The flying creature possessed you. I had to stab the dagger into your chest to get them out. I didn't want to, but I had to. There was no other way. I'm sorry. I'm okay now. But why don't you remember anything? When I'm possessed, I don't remember it. It's just the way I am, she explained. I don't have any memory of it. It's like my mind is wiped out. I guess my guardian angel doesn't want me to have any effect from it. It's probably a good thing. Olivia and Gina stood up and walked away from Inga's house. Olivia noticed the glint of a light and walked towards it. Then she came closer to it. She realized it was the diamond. The light slowly faded inside it. A blue and white mist swayed out of it. It raised the children's souls into the sky. They all left a message behind for Gina and Olivia as the voices echoed out. Thank you. Olivia's ancestors were finally put at rest. It should have been like that all along. The diamond turned as black as darkness, hard as rock. Olivia grabbed the dreadful dagger. It was now useless and harmless. She looked at both the dagger and diamond. They couldn't do any harm towards anybody or anything. What to do with them now? What are you going to do with these? Gina took the dagger from Olivia and stared at it, then back at Olivia. Put them somewhere safe. Or we can destroy them and be done with it. Or we can put them somewhere safe so nobody can get to them. Why? Inga is dead and my ancestors, as you just saw, are finally released and resting in peace where they should have been in the first place. Yes, you are right. That's why I'm going to keep them safe. You'll never have to see them again. Good, Olivia said with both hands up. Just then, Olivia thought about the demons and clutched Gina's arm. Where are the demons? Gina shrugged. Probably gone, and if they are still here, they can't do anything without their master. They have no commands to follow. They are lost. Are you sure? Yes. Thank you for everything. Anytime. It's good to have a friend on your side. I agree with that, she said. Olivia just remembered Gina's leg. Gina, your leg. I almost forgot. Gina stopped. You're right. She placed a hand on her thigh and paused. The wound is gone. That's weird. I guess the creature possession was so strong, it healed you. Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm glad you're okay. Gina pulled Olivia into a hug. You'll never lose me. You're stuck with me forever. Olivia hugged her back. I'm glad you're a close friend. Me too. Olivia and Gina walked back to the house. Olivia ran into her mom's arms and held on. Mom, it's over. I did it. She's dead. Her mom held Olivia closer and kissed her on the head. I love you. I love you too, Mom. Olivia hugged her dad tightly. I love you, Dad. I love you too. Olivia pulled her mom closer and the three of them laughed with relief. Okay, now here's the epical, I think is how you say it. After Inga was officially dead, Gina knew she needed to hide the dagger and the diamond. When the taxi dropped her off at home, she went down to the basement. She stopped in front of a picture that was as tall and as wide as she was. She reached up and pressed a button on the edge of the picture. It slid open, then stopped. A light turned on at the end of the concrete hall. She walked to the safe door in the brick wall. She'd always wanted to use this hidden place for something, but she had never had anything so important to hide until now. She pressed in the code and opened the door. She looked at the dagger and the diamond one last time. It would be the last time she would ever see and touch them again. Gina set them close together, then closed the door and locked it. She walked back down the hall and watched the picture close shut. A hand, here's the interesting part. A hand gripped her shoulder tightly. Gina stopped in her tracks and flinched. Her heart skipped a beat. She brought a hand to her chest. Her brows creased. Inga wasn't the only one you had to worry about, was she? The cruel demonic voice pierced the air. The captivating voice penetrated through her. A cackle echoed right behind her ear as an ice-cold feeling struck her neck. Da da da. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the back of this, when I redid my cover for this, I did like the first couple of pages of Awakened Evil, but since we are going to be reading Awakened Evil, the first chapter tomorrow, I'm gonna wait for that. So, there you go. I read all 35 chapters. I have no clue how long that took me to read this book. I don't know. But, so the last 2 chapters was a lot of fun to write. And I knew when I was writing these chapters, I was getting down to the point. So, I wanted a lot of action to happen. And when I was writing it, I did not know how to kill Inga. And how to release the children. And then I realized, wait, maybe I can have Olivia get the diamond away from her and then stab her. Because if she's not wearing the diamond, she turns like dead looking. Her skin's all like dry and it just looks really nasty. Like she looked literally like a dead person out of a coffin for years. So when she's not wearing the diamond, she turns just dead looking. But when she has it on, she looks young and fresh because the souls are keeping her alive. And so I was like, okay, we can do that. So I had Olivia release the diamond from Inga and then stab her, and it killed her, so she thought. And this isn't really like a cliffhanger. I tried to not make it a cliffhanger when I had Olivia go home and she was hugging her mom and her dad and saying, oh, I love you, it's over, she's dead. And they're laughing with relief, like, oh, it's over. And then the one last part was when Gina takes it to her house. And then she hears that creepy sound and that voice behind her ear saying, Inga wasn't the only one you had to worry about. And I had no clue who was even saying that. And then, like, years later, I was like, oh, okay, it's probably one of the demons. So, maybe this is a cliffhanger, I guess. I don't know. I mean, if you guys think it is, you can comment down below and give me your opinion. But I really wanted to... I didn't realize I was going to write a second book until a few months. I think, like, a few months or a month after I finished this one. Because I had so much fun writing this, I'm like, I feel the need that this book needs to continue because there's characters in this book that I didn't give enough backstory to or something. So I was like, okay, I will go ahead and give a lot of more information about these characters, but not too much because there's like 3 more books. So, I'm just so glad that I got to read this. And I do have to admit, when I was reading each chapter, I noticed few errors. Like, there would be a sentence without a period, or a name was misspelled, like Richard. There wasn't an H. I don't know, what else? But it wasn't bad, which I was like, oh, thank God. So... when I was, like, reading through each chapter, I wasn't trying to look for mistakes or anything. And I'm not going to go back and fix those because I'm just so sick and tired of, like, going back. Every time I get a book published, I go back. And when I'm reading it, I catch it when it's already published. But I go through these books, like, 3 or 4 times. And, you know, your eyes get tired. And I did offer, I think, to give a proof copy to a couple of friends, and they're like, they didn't say they didn't want to do it, but I just had a feeling like they didn't want to. So but I'm very thankful for this book, and I enjoyed the characters in this book. But I'm trying to think, all these characters actually continue on in the next book, which I probably shouldn't say that, but Anyways, but there are characters like Suzanne. It's supposed to be Susan, not Suzanne. See, that was another mistake. There was a character named Suzanne in this one. When I changed her name in Awakened Evil, because I had too many character names with an A at the end, like Olivia, Inga, and Gina, and I was like, oh my god. So I think with the second book I did change it. Maybe her real name is Susanna, but everyone calls her Susan or Suzanne. So, but I know for a fact in, I think the third and fourth, maybe the second book, they do call her Suzanne instead of Susanna, because that's another lesson that I learned when I was writing this book. Don't use so many names that rhyme together, because it's so confusing, because it was confusing me, I have to admit. So I'm just really glad that I got to write this book. And if you have any questions about it, you can comment down below. You can write what you liked about it. You can leave any questions if you want. So yeah, so this is the end of the first book. So, and it is available on Amazon, print and ebook. So they are $15, and I do have copies over here. You can't really see it, but I have a lot of copies that are for sale. So, and then I will be doing farmers market this Tuesday, so I will have copies. So thank you all so much for coming along with me with this live reading journey, and I am really excited for the second book. I'm so excited that I really want to get up early in the morning and just start reading it, but I have church in the morning. I always put God first. So I think tomorrow, I don't know, I think I said 3 o'clock or 4, I'll read the first chapter. And I'm so excited because they are like, in the beginning of the book, there's 4 brand new characters. And I had so much fun writing those characters. I'm just like, I just cannot wait to start reading it. But I think tomorrow, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock, I will start reading chapter 1 of Awakened Evil. So I guess that is it for the Wish live reading. Right, Batman? Right? We're gonna start Awakened Evil tomorrow.